Hello, everybody. It's a big day on the NFL calendar. Today's one of the biggest days of the offseason. Other than free agency and the draft, it might be the biggest. And we got to talk about it. We got some things we got to say about it. And we know you guys are definitely going to want to hear about it. So I'm Brendan. That is Brandon. And today is the NFL schedule release. And we got some things to say about it. So how you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing great, man. It's always one of those places on the NFL schedule throughout the year that you look to that you get really excited about because you can tell a lot about what your schedule is going to be looking like the next coming year. There's some of those people that love to poo-poo this a little bit, Brendan, and say, no, you don't know anything until they actually play the games. But I would advise, no, you can see the troubling places. You could see a couple of years ago having to go to Germany mid-year. That might be a little bit tough on us, especially considering the opponent. And last year we had the gauntlet, the absolute gauntlet we had to get through in order to mid-season there. That was definitely something that stood out that was going to make it hard for us to have a lot of success last year.
Right. So we are going to go through the schedule today. I will say this. I have not looked at it. I only know one game, which is the first game, because that one got put all over the place yesterday afternoon. Unavoidable. Other than that, I don't know what the schedule is. I have not looked at it yet. So we're going to have a little bit of fun kind of doing a live react to it. But Brandon, I know you've looked at it because you did a show a little bit ago talking about it. So he's going to take us through game by game, and then we're going to talk about it. So before we get there, though, over the last couple weeks, me and Brandon have not done a show. This is our first show in 13 days. It's been a quiet 13 days, really. It's been kind of nice. The rookies are signing quickly. We've got 6 of our 8 draft picks have signed.
That's a big deal considering Devin Witherspoon last year, of course, held out. So getting these things secured may seem like a small little thing, but was that an inhibiting factor to the Witherspoon's game? Was it also part of why he got the hamstring pull early on into camp because he was trying to catch up? So good to get them on and set and put down right now and not have to worry about it.
Right. The one thing that we've heard about that I feel like is actually discussable, the one thing we've heard about that I actually think merits a little bit of talk would be Draymont Jones. Draymont Jones, according to his trainer, is planning on a position switch this year, and he's going to be playing edge, maybe not full time, but a lot of the time. What did you make of that when that was announced the other day?
I can't say that I completely understand what's going on, and I don't want to be negative to something that I don't even know where the plan's going and what it is. But when I look at Draymont Jones, you signed him to the $17.5 million deal. You made him the highest paid free agent in Seahawks history, outside free agent in Seahawks history, for the damage that he did inside as a defensive tackle. Now he's being moved to the outside. And I keep coming back to this is maybe being done to help out a team fill a hole that they need for the scheme to work. And then that less being about then what's best for the player or what position to put the player in to have him be maximally effective. And I think this is a move that doesn't necessarily do that for Draymond. And are you doing this, Brendan? I mean, you tell me, are you doing this because you weren't able to get the power edge this offseason in the draft or signing, and that's what's necessitating this? Is it because Byron Murphy, you just like him so much and you don't want to keep the snaps away from him, having him have a chance? And you know, if Draymond's out there, how many snaps are left over? He's going to play the Miles Adams role for us, being Byron Murphy, Brendan. I guess maybe you can make it make sense to me a little bit. I'm not going to rail on it. We've talked about this, that Draymond's not likely to be long for the Seahawks world here in the grand scheme of things. But nonetheless, you did spend the money you did for him to be in there. Byron Murphy's not going to be at his peak out the gate. It's going to take him time to maybe get into that full what he offers on the field. You had Mike Morris, who you could have just transitioned right back out there to the power edge. We still don't know exactly what they're intending to do with him. So I'm all the way around just a little bit confused on this one.
Well, I have a couple of thoughts here. First of all, Draymont Jones's big breakout year in Denver, which was the year that got him paid, 2022. If you look at PFF, he played about 300 snaps inside, 200 snaps over the tackle, and 200 snaps outside the tackle, if I recall the numbers correctly. So he was actually kind of playing all over the place then, and that was his best year. He actually mixed it up a little bit. He was playing inside, over, and outside. So he's no stranger to mixing it up a little bit. In fact, the 2 years he had in Denver that were really good were years where he did kind of move all over the place from snap to snap. So I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to use him in a more creative and flexible way. Second thing would be that I believe in Baltimore, both years that McDonald was the DC there, all of their 4-eye defensive ends or 3-techs or whatever you want to call it were over 300 pounds. Draymont Jones is like 285. Some people say he's 280, but I think he's about 285. So maybe they're like, well, he doesn't really work for the kind of deep down lineman that McDonald wants. So let's try this instead. I don't think it's a terrible idea at all. So I know that he didn't play great last year when he was transitioned to that edge role after Nwosu got hurt. But I mean, once you look back at the numbers, actually, he did show some improvement in terms of getting after the quarterback after that point. I know that there were some other issues with him, like he was probably part of the reason why the run defense completely fell off a cliff after Nwosu got hurt. But I can see some of the wisdom here. I don't think this is a bad idea, making the best of a slightly awkward situation.
Yeah, I think from my perspective on it, he may have played those snaps out there at Denver, but when reviewing the tape of him in Denver and looking at the times when he was making an impact and doing really strong things on tape, it was when he was operating inside. I don't, the flexibility may be there for him to do it, but he had 2 sacks from week 10 onwards. He created some decent amount of pressures, but it looks to me for the most part that the pressures were really being created when he was playing early on in the season, the inside, when he was playing the outside. And I just come back to, again, feeling like a little bit of here that this is being done, mainly at the behest of other factors outside of what's best. Again, you come back to the scheme and this and that, and all that may be true. And it's just like they're trying to maybe salvage this for what it is. I'm not going to be too mad about it because, again, it's not that I'm even mad about it. Just like it just is a little bit of a head scratcher when you make that signing. This guy wasn't just a small signing. You made him a huge paid guy on this. You said, okay, here we go. And then now you're just kind of, I know new scheme's going to change some of this stuff. And your points are advised. I get on the 300-pounder. They'll all say Justin Matabuke is not a big 300-pound. He's like 290 guy, really. So I don't know if the weight's supremely different between Jones and Matabuke on that to the point where he couldn't do the things they want done inside in there.
Yeah, well, here's what I would ask. Would you rather those snaps go to Darrell Taylor, or would you rather Darrell Taylor get cut, you save the $3.1 million, and then those snaps go to Draymont Jones?
Yeah, I think that Darrell Taylor gets cut, and this isn't a skill set that's impossible to go out there and find. I have to go find a Red Bryant, and maybe not as good as a Red Bryant, but and yeah, just check. Justin Matabuke was 293, so there's
really? Okay.
An 11 pound difference with these two guys. Basically, when it stands. That's my thing. I would have taken Mike Morris and moved him out to a power edge. He's shown you that he can run the power edge role in this defense and in the defense that Mike McDonald's exact defense out of Michigan. I go, well, that seems to be the straightforward one. If you're looking for the guy who can play that role and do that position, pop him out there, so maybe it'll work. I didn't know as much. That's a great stat you mentioned about the, how many snaps he did run on the outside. It just when I was reviewing the Denver tape and looking at him, and maybe it was because on the recent year prior to the one where he'd gotten paid, that I was everything that was kind of looking at me was just everything's inside, and that he was doing what he was doing when he was in there that was good. It was penetrating and creating some of that sort of inside game wrecking kind of ability. And we'll see how it plays out. It's good to still have the ability, I guess, to fix him in and out. The other thing I worry about though, Brendan, is okay, so he trains this off season to be an edge. Okay, so does that mean that he then loses another 10 pounds? Does that mean that he walks into camp at 265? And does that mean that we now are having him removed from being able to play 3-tech if we have to call upon him to do that?
Yeah. I'm interested to see which way this goes. Like, there are definitely concerns. Like, I know some people who were trying to be optimistic about this move were saying, oh, he could be like, Clowney was for Baltimore last year, because Clowney's also a bigger, slower edge, but Clowney's a lot more athletic than Draymont Jones. Like Draymont, I remember his combine scores were not particularly good in that area. No. Even current Clowney would beat the brakes off of him.
Yeah, he doesn't have the straight line explosiveness of Clowney. He doesn't have the length and quite the size that Clowney has. That's a big part of Clowney's game. So you can't quite get that comp. He can maybe get the edge running, defending stuff down, but you're kind of, for my bottom line, you're sort of paying guys $17.5 million to play Red Bryant. Again, maybe it gives you a little bit more pass rush than Red Bryant gave you back in the day, but And it's a new regime. That's where you come out of. You can't get mad at this stuff because it is new regime, new change. Guy that you had last year slide to a spot. It's going to change completely with the new guy coming in. And you got to expect this um, kind of moving things all over, even on stuff that you go, wait, there's some quality there. It's like, yeah, it's just new system, new scheme, new page turn. So you got to go with it.
Yeah, I would hope that he ends up being able to play both. We see some of him at edge, some of him inside. And if he ends up losing the ability to do one of those things, I think that takes away from the little bit he's going to be able to do, because he's got so many guys in front of him on both sides. You've got Nwosu, you've got Mafe, you've got now Byron Murphy, you've got Leonard Williams, there's a lot that he has to go through just to get on the field. So I think him being able to do a little bit of both is the best case scenario.
That's why I worry about him not being able to. He loses the weight, can't play inside, can only play the edge. Now Seattle runs him out there in situations where offenses are running, base packages or running run heavy looking packages. He's out there for that. In passing situations, now he's flexed out for a guy like Uchenna Nwosu, so he's not getting any of the pass rush snaps. He's just out there to be the run defender. And you go, well, we could get more out of this guy, I think. I know you're good at 3-tech and all that stuff there, but do you feel like you can still, if that's what his bottom line role is, you end up coming away from that going, man, we could have done more with that than that. But it is a need on the team. I'm not discounting that. It's something that you need somebody to fill that role. And Derek Hall is not going to probably do it based off what he showed last year with that. And like you said with Darrell Taylor, there's no chance he's pulling that off. And that leaves you down to two edges at the end of the day with Uchenna and Boye that actually can kind of do that stuff.
All right, so that's really about all that's going on right now. Seahawks been nice and quiet. They had a nice rookie mini camp. Saw some good things. Saw some maybe not so great things, like Barner was hurt, unfortunately, worst possible time for him to be dealing with something, but he'll be all right. He's not going to play a ton this year, I don't think, anyway. So, anything else that you want to go into before the schedule?
No, I think it's been pretty quiet. So nothing that's been bubbling too much so far. Just nice.
All right. So the 2024 NFL schedule has been out for a little more than an hour now. And that obviously includes the Seahawks and their games. And I know the first game and I don't know anything else. So you want to start with that very first game?
Well, with the very first game that you are aware of, but none of the other ones, and I am, and this is fun, folks. I get unveil stuff here for Brendan. Week 1, the Seahawks are going to face the Denver Broncos and Coach Sean Payton, rookie quarterback Bo Nix, at home.
That's
1
right.
1 a.m. game.
All right.
1 p.m.
So that's as good of an opening opportunity as you are going to get. You're facing a team that projects to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. I don't think they're going to be like bottom 3, but they could be like bottom 8 pretty easily. I would expect that.
Yes.
I would expect something like that. And you're also getting probably a rookie.
There we go. Yep, we're good.
Okay, we're good. All right. I don't know if that was my side or what happened, but I think we're good now.
Yeah, we're all right. I think we're clicked back in.
All right. So anyway, probably going to be dealing with a rookie quarterback playing his first ever NFL game, because if 25-year-old Bo Nix can't beat out Zach Wilson and Jared Stidham, Denver made the wrong pick.
Yeah, I would probably say so. I could see there being a little bit of a thing here where Sean Payton comes into this year, Brendan, and he goes, like you say, we're not competing this year in this division, in this conference, and we need to just sort of bleed out the bad here with what we have to deal with in the Russell situation, rather than throwing Bo Nix in the fire for the hope that he can help us compete this year. I wonder if it will be Stidham through at least a lot of the year. And I think this is a great matchup for the Hawks. As you said, rookie quarterbacks are the ideal to be able to usually face when it comes to a schedule. And having a guy like this in his first start maybe will be awesome. Even if it's Stidham, to me, we got to go past the days, Brendan, where we have to fear these backup quarterbacks anymore. Like
Mhm.
those days don't have to be part of what we think about as it stands. And so even if it's Stitham, you're playing this at home. You're not in Mile High. How hard, you mentioned this past, how hard it is to win in Mile High early in the year because of, I can't breathe. And it's also usually a little hot then on top of that. And it makes it even harder for those teams. You're not facing that, which is honestly kind of something that's going to stand out the schedule you already know about that I'm not leaking to you, is that these matchups that could be in places that be tougher, you're getting them at home, a Buffalo team, a Miami team, you're getting those at home rather on the road, where it'd be a much tougher matchup to me on the road versus home, especially Miami team. You go on the road early. They put you in the jerseys that your home jerseys, right? So you got the sun and the heat hitting you. They're in their whites so that they can, it's all that stuff. But the other thing that stood out in looking at this Denver team, Brendan, is not only the rookie quarterback, the offensive line pass protected a little bit better, but they lost Jerry Jeudy. They lost Justin Simmons, their safety this offseason. That defense has been kind of tore down by Sean Payton since the Fangio Evero days. And it's been torn down kind of quick. It's got some parts and pieces there still. Surtain's still there and all that. That's not going to make it easy, but there's some stuff you can get after with this team. And again, right now, Cortland Sutton's wanting a trade. You might see their 1 and 2 wide receivers be Josh Reynolds and Tim Patrick come opening week of the season.
Mm-hmm. And Tim Patrick probably gets hurt again, so it might be Marvin Mims.
That's it. Well, and Mims is just a slot guy, so they're really in trouble if they're having to play him on the outside 24/7.
Yeah, and I think they still got Dulcich at tight end, right? He'll probably get hurt again too.
Yeah, but he's listed as a backup right now to Troutman.
Oh yeah, the guy that the Sean Payton guy that got brought over from New Orleans.
Yeah,
and they kept Vance Joseph as their DC, which I really didn't like on their part. I don't know why you don't think you can do better than that.
I think that's, to me, part of the teardown with them is that they've moved off a lot of guys and not, really retain certain guys. And they're changing the whole nature of the defense too, from what it was with the cover two. Not all the way, but they moved it and changed it off the spot of what it was rather than just keep riding what was working. They broke what was already fixed. They broke what was one of the better defenses in the NFL and just did it just because that's what he wants to run. And now he's paying the price for that a little bit. And we're going to get to benefit from that, I think, a little bit come week 1.
Right. And, in the old days, looking at a game like this, I would have gotten on here and I would have talked about how, it makes sense. You're playing at home against a rookie quarterback in his first ever NFL start, so you should win. But then in the back of my mind, I'd have to be scared that Pete Carroll would make everything easy for him by playing back, by playing soft, by playing, the same cover 3 zone on every single snap that he always does. And then, you just find this weird way to lose because he just keeps taking the check down over and over and over again. And, Bo Nix is the kind of guy who will do as he's told, right? Bo Nix will, if Sean Payton says, just keep taking the check down, keep going underneath against the cover 3, he'll probably do it because that's one of the things about Bo Nix that makes him stand out. He does what he's told, right?
He does. And he's got that mobility that sometimes gives our Seahawks defenses in recent years problems.
Yeah, and I don't have to feel that way anymore because we're running a new defense. And I'm not saying this new defense is immediately going to be amazing, but it's also a defense that I would expect to be able to throw something at rookie Bo Nix that he's not quite ready for, right?
Oh, agreed. Yeah, I think you can. You're talking about stack fronts and trying to make him, take that first read away and then manufacture throws to the flat that you have guys ready covered up to tackle and neutralize the play down. He's going to do a lot of these type of things, I think, within his scheme. So I will be surprised if we see Nix that week 1 where Payton's like just throwing him out there. But Nix or Stidham, that's a quarterback matchup that you feel good about, especially a rookie having in week 1. I think Nix is a good landing spot there with Denver long term, but I don't think this year 1, if he's thrown out there to start with the receivers he has on the outside that aren't going to win a lot of one-on-one matchups. I don't think if Cortland's not out there, that helps you out significantly on that. And it's a game that is at home again too, which you'll have the crowd hyped up week 1. I think that's going to factor in new regime coming in there. I think there's going to be a lot of energy in that building.
Mm-hmm. Troy Franklin going down the field like this, like he's drunk.
Oh, exactly.
See a little bit of that too.
A little winding action. Mm-hmm. I'll get there eventually. I'm just gonna go, I swear.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's way too early to get too deep into this kind of stuff, but offhand, I'm feeling pretty good about week 1 at home against Denver. I'm feeling like that's a game I would go in expecting to win.
I would too. I'm going to try to be conservative with my outlook on the schedule, but that's to where that spot is at, where we're getting them. Again, I think that the stadium is going to be energized and there'll be an electricity to it. It's going to be as loud as we've probably heard in quite a bit of time. I think it's going to be a game we can take. And I think the Broncos have weakened themselves over recent years, and they understand they're in a place this upcoming year where we're not, we'll try our best to compete, but this is about turning over the leaf and getting out from underneath this dark shadow that's going to be on top of us for 2 years.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I think we're both feeling a win there. So where does that leave us going into week 2?
Week 2, we are on the road, Brendan. We're going to travel out in one of our few East Coast trips on the schedule. And that is going to be the New England Patriots at 10 a.m.
Oh, okay. So, New England Patriots on the road. Gerard Mayo, Drake May, presumably Drake May.
Mm-hmm.
New England Patriots. So, offhand, it seems like a pretty reasonable one. I mean, New England was one of the worst teams in the league last year, and I don't think they made an upgraded coach. I'm sure they've got at least a little bit of an upgraded quarterback, but again, it's going to be very early in his career. We're getting 2 rookies starting their career, basically, against the Seahawks defense. So, doesn't seem too bad, but it is a road game. New England's not an easy place to win in typically. So, what are you expecting from that New England defense this year under Mayo as the head coach?
I think the problem comes down to is that they think they've been thinking too much at times through the past few years that they can get things done by scheming things up rather than just getting the raw talent in there. I think they've added some interesting guys through the years that I really like. We liked Keon White out of Georgia Tech a couple of years ago, outside guy that was going to kick in. I think he showed some flashes last year. Matthew Judon is a dog off the edge. He's that guy that isn't going to be one of the elite guys off the edge, but he'll get you production, from that side. Joshua Unt, they re-signed him and kept him in house. A guy I know the Seahawks were interested in, a real good blitzer in that scheme. We move him all around. Just he's a weapon. And then the back end, they got Jabril Peppers and then Gonzalez coming back. Gonzalez they lost early on last year, of course, that major injury, and who was playing pretty well before they did lose him. So they've got a mixture of talent, but in between that, it's Devon Gachu, Christian Barrymore, Jawan Bentley, Jelani Tavai, Jonathan Jones. Yeah, it's kind of, Kyle Duggar's a good player at strong safety, but there's a mix in their defense there where it can do some good things, but there's some places that probably you can also go out and exploit as well. To me, it comes down to the offense. That's what's been really as much anything holding them back the past couple of years. They do have Jacoby Brissett, so there may be a chance you're playing Jacoby in this game instead of Drake May. But they did draft the 2 receivers, which I like for a move for I like it as a move for May in the long term, Brendan. They got Jalen Polk there. They got Javon Baker out of UCF. So I thought they got 2 really good receivers for the long term. But in the interim, Kendrick Bourne, Juju Smith-Schuster, Demario Douglas. I don't know if that's going to really get it done for whoever's quarterback there. And that this is a team that was 4 wins last year for a reason. They weren't very good. That offensive line has also not been as strong with the Patriots recently as it had been in the past. It's been slowly kind of, getting weaker and weaker, it seems like every year at times. I think like the Cole Strange pick for them, that weird one that they made, remember, they was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, he's a guard right now. He's not even a center. And I don't know how good he's playing. I haven't checked on him, but I haven't heard a lot of great things about him either. So I'm guessing it's been kind of a mixed result there with him. So I would still say with this one, 64 overall grade with him last year. So he's just been basically league average. I would say with this one, Brissett or May, I still would feel good about our Seahawks. It's a 10 a.m. game, which is going to be tough. And it's in New England and all that, but you're not playing the cold weather element of this. You're getting them early season where the weather's going to be pretty nice still.
Yeah.
I think I have a hard time seeing Brissett or May beating the Seahawks where we stand right now with just our talent alone.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it too. You would expect that defense to regress just by losing Belichick as well. I think that he did a lot of good things to prop up that defense last year when they lost players. They lost a lot of their talent to injury, and they were still good. Like they still they beat the Steelers and they were able to beat Sean Payton and the Broncos late in the season as well when they were completely beat up. Had that offense at like 60 total yards through the first 3 quarters. There were other games where I thought their defense played really well. You're not really going to have to worry about that so much this time around, I don't think. I don't think that Gerard Mayo is going to be bringing all that communal knowledge that Belichick does. So I feel like offhand, that's a game you should expect to win.
Yeah, I think this is a game too where you could potentially get some real nice holes up in the run game against that front seven. I'd love to challenge them up there and see what they can roll with. So I feel the same way, and I just don't think offensively they've got enough to really attack you defensively. As long as you can stop them in the run game, I think at the forefront, this is a team in New England that'll lean on that run game, I think, heavily this year. So how you stop the run will be a big part of this one, but it just comes down to the bottom line for me. Look at their quarterback position, along with the fact that the offense is so underpowered and has been so for a few years. Love the moves they made, but with Polk and Baker, these guys aren't going to be ready to meet week 2 to go out there and be impact players. So they're going to lean on those older receivers still, and those guys that are just kind of number 2, number 3 guys at best. And I don't think that's going to be enough collectively.
All right. So that's week 2. What do we got for week 3?
Week 3, we come back home, Brendan, and we are going to get a tough matchup here with the Miami Dolphins at home in week 3.
Early season Dolphins. That could be a problem.
This could be a problem here. So Dolphins coming out. Where would you see this one going?
Well, obviously we know Miami was the greatest team of all time last year in September.
They were.
Yeah, they were. They were pretty much right up there with the all-time greats. They were up there with the 85 Bears. So going from last year, they have lost a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean a heck of a lot, because they lost Christian Wilkins, probably their best defensive player. They lost Jerome Baker. He's actually here now. And that's a big chunk of what they had going for them on defense, right? I think they lost one of their backup edge rushers. Yeah, Xavier Howard.
And they got the backup edge rusher, or the main, they might have lost the backup edge rusher, but they do still have Jalen Phillips towards Achilles week 12 last year.
So he's probably still out.
Right? Wouldn't you think at that point, or at least not at 100% by that point, he's probably being rotated in heavily on the snaps. That's why they drafted Chop Robinson.
Yeah, okay. So offensively, I don't think they've done a lot to fix their offensive line, but they don't necessarily need to, because their scheme allows them to continue to be productive despite it. They still have Mostert and Achaney, or you know who I'm talking about. That 1-2 punch at running back that is absolutely deadly. They still got Tyreek. They still got Waddle. So it's an offense that is going to throw a lot of stuff at you. That's a tough one. And because it's early season, it's not going to be cold. If we were playing Miami and it was below 60 degrees, I'd feel differently, but it probably won't be. And maybe it'll be, it's at home, right? It could be one of those days where it's just rainy and cold, and maybe we got it. But barring that, this is probably going to be Mike McDonald's first L off the top of my head.
I think I would be in agreement with you on this one. I think offensively, there's just too much firepower for the Dolphins coming into this. You mentioned the 2 backs. They also drafted Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. So they're three speedy backs deep. They're just going to throw pure speed at you from an offensive standpoint. And I don't know if there's just an easy fix on that, especially a guy like Jonnu Smith, who, though he's not as much of a pass catcher, he is a good run blocker, and there as a tight end. And so you combine that all together with you're right, they didn't do a lot with the offensive line. They did draft the Patrick Paul guy to give themselves some insurance for Teron Armstead in his yearly injury situations that he has prop up. But it's a strong offensive line across the board for the most part. And I think that this is one where they're going to be able to attack some of those things with the Hawks defense. It's probably one of those transitional points where, especially in the ground game, to me, we're still trying to come along a bit, and they're able to get after it. Defensively, they don't scare me. As you said, they've lost some parts and pieces there across the board, but you still got Javon Holland, Jalen Ramsey in that secondary, or at least okay. Bradley Chubb coming off the edge can be a bit of a problem and issue to deal with. But I think this could be a couple of these games on the schedule. I'm going to show you early on this. I think could eventually be a high scoring game. And this eventually could be one a little bit like the Lions games we've had recently, Brendan, where you end up with a 37-31 kind of score because of how it plays out.
Yeah, I worry about our safeties in this game too. I still don't totally trust our safeties where they are right now.
Yeah.
So I would say that this is probably an L, and a home L, which is never fun, but you can always do a rain dance before kickoff.
You never know.
And then all bets are off.
You never know. All right, well, moving along, we got week 4. We come back next, and we are going to get our first primetime matchup of the year, Brendan. 4 weeks into the season, and we are going to get it against the Detroit Lions.
Home. This is away or
Away.
home? All
Away
right.
game. So not a 10 a.m. game like the last 2 years with Detroit, but at 5:15 in the evening time. A Sunday night football game, by the way. So yeah, this is an interesting one for me on this. I love the fact they made this prime time, Brendan.
Yeah, this one's interesting. We've obviously had Detroit the last 3 years, taken care of them all 3 times. One of
Mhm.
those years they were not doing so well. They had the, I think, number 2 pick in 2021, and we beat them at the end of the year when they were playing their third string quarterback or something like that. But we did well against them last year. We did well against them the year before. 2 really fun, really interesting games. 2 of Gino's best career games, I would say. Like, you look at those 2 games that he played, those might
Mm.
be the best he's had to offer so far. So the Lions, obviously, great team last year. They lost Reynolds this offseason, although a lot of Lions fans were not too upset to see him go, if we're being
Right.
honest. Let's see here. They just gave Jared Goff a lot of money, which is not going to make, they're ruining it for the rest of us.
Yeah, it's not gonna make it easy if you're hoping for quarterback discounts when Goff's making that kind of dough.
Right. Defensively, they I don't think they retained Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, right? So
He went back to the
whatever,
Eagles.
yeah, so whatever they're hoping to get there, not going to happen. Um, let's see here. What did they do in the draft? I'm trying to remember here. That was near the
They
end of
took the Terry and they went after Terry and Arnold and
Mhm.
this Rakestraw because the secondary for them has been the big issue for years now. And so
Mhm.
they said, all right, we're going to just double dip down in this draft with 2 guys at the corner. I think Carlton Davis is the guy they signed 2 out of Tampa Bay. So they've got 3 corners they're hoping can kind of reflex that out a little bit. And we'll see if that's the case. I wasn't as big on Terry and Arnold. Some people really were though. So we'll see if he can, be that guy. My standpoint when we look at the Lions, if I was a Lions fans, I was more hoping as much as yes, get the secondary, get me another edge rusher with Aiden because so many teams can just put so much attention to Aiden and doubling, tripling him and not worry about the rest of that line. And the only guy you got to worry about is like Marcus Davenport really on that line. They did get DJ Reader, who might help them inside a little bit more out of Cincinnati, but I don't think he had quite as strong a season last year for Cincinnati. He was just kind of solid rather than really, really good as he's been.
Right. But I think this is going to be a really good game. I'm excited to see how it plays out. But as of right now, assuming that Detroit was able to successfully improve their secondary, which has been their problem lately, ultimately, it's probably the reason why they didn't get to the Super Bowl in 2023. That probably pushes things in favor of the Lions.
And this is one where I'm going to give it, and I'm going to end up being conservative at some point in the schedule, I promise you, Brendan. But this is one where I'm actually going to go with a win for this reason. The Lions, as you just said, I think you'd agree. The Lions beat us in this game. They're going to probably beat us really on the back, mainly what they do offensively, right? Not that their defense is going to potentially be stronger, like you said, they may be stronger. So instead of we scored 48 points on them 2 years ago, we scored 37 points on them last year. They hold us to 24, 21, whatever, right?
Right.
What the Lions offense runs heavily upon is a lot of the option routes, a lot of reading the leverage. And the problem comes into play with a Mike McDonald defense. And one of my opinions why Mike McDonald's defense was able to shut down the Lions on the road in Baltimore last year is because the leverage is easier to read when what you're running pre-snap is what you're running post-snap. If you're going from here and the receiver's coming off and then last second you're busting this way randomly because that's the way the coverage is, and now he's ready as well to come that way, you're going to have a lot of times where you're running the route right back into where basically the coverage is going to, right? Rather than things being predisposed and you being able to read a little bit more like Lions could put with us before, why they had so much offensive success with Carroll's defense is what you saw was what you got, right? Off coverage, we read it, I read it, come back, hit it. And I think that's the place where maybe there's a little advantage here for us to get, coming back to the fact again that we've just been so offensively really good against them, and it's a primetime game and it's not a 10 a.m. game. But I do come back to that going, I wonder how those option routes are going to work against this new defense like that. But the Lions are legitimately really good, and I don't want to undersell it. If we do win this game, Brendan, it'll be by squeaking it out. I'm going to still put a W on it because you beat in the last 2 years with a defense that's been almost non-functional. Can it be barely functional? Yeah, I think it can. Now, maybe the Lions are also up to barely functional. So we'll get like a 17-13 game.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be a lot easier if they lost Ben Johnson this offseason, but they did not. Somehow, some way they kept him.
That's true. That's true. Even Ingolstrad
Hmm. They kept everybody somehow. That's not how it's supposed to work.
kept everybody. All right. So you got a W or loss?
I'll put a loss up for now.
All right. So Brendan's got the loss. We come up now to week 5, Brendan. So we're cooking
Okay.
along, quarter way through the schedule. We're going to go back home here for 2 weeks, and we're going to play the New York Giants. Daniel Jones or Drew Lock led New York Giants.
Yeah, always has to be a consideration. Always
Yes,
has to be
sir.
on the table here.
Yes, sir.
So New York Giants, running it back with Daniel Jones, presumably running it back with Brian Daboll, which I think is correct. I think Daboll's a good coach. I'm not objecting to that at all.
To me, I'd want to know if Daboll was really signing off on that contract they gave Daniel Jones. And my assessment of Daboll, I'd be like, were you pounding the table for that one? Or are you like, we don't really need to do this, guys. We can maybe do something else there.
Yeah, I with how much he yells at him on the sideline, I would assume he wasn't terribly excited about that one.
I would probably say that's the case as well.
But they have finally given him some good receivers. I will say that. Like they've got Neighbors, who I think is going to be very good. I think Jalen Hyatt, with a year under his belt, is going to be a lot better. I think you're going to see some big improvements there. We'll see what goes on with the offensive line here because they're still going to be leaning on Evan Neal, and I think he's kind of a lost cause. I've basically thrown in the towel on him. Darren Waller might retire because he's depressed from having to play with Daniel Jones. So I don't know. And what I'm saying sounds very mean-spirited, but I actually like Daniel Jones and I want him to be good. I just don't think that he is. So, tough love and all that. Defensively, they were, I think, pretty good last year, especially with the offense they had to deal with. They've obviously, we've taken Leonard Williams from them, so that's kind of a big deal. That was a big part of the seat of their power defensively. And I believe they've lost Adoree Jackson this offseason. They're going to be leaning heavily on Thibodeau having a breakout year. This is kind of a make or break year for him, I feel like, whether or not he's going to become an NFL, become a part of their long-term plans or not. Still got Dexter Lawrence. He's great. They lost their safety, right? They lost
Xavier McKinney.
He went to he didn't go to
Packers.
the Eagles. Yeah, Packers. Okay. I remember there was an initial report that he went to the Eagles and everyone freaked out because it's like, where are the Eagles getting all this money? And okay, so yeah, Xavier McKinney went to the Packers, so they probably lost something a little bit defensively. They also lost their DC, so Martindale, and he's one of the more high-profile DCs out there. So significant loss. So at home, gotta say, I'm feeling pretty dang good about what a Mike McDonald defense can do to Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I like this matchup for early in the season too, especially. Did like their draft pretty well. They got also Tyler Nubin in there to flex in for Xavier McKinney. I think that's a nice fit for them with that there. They also traded, remember, Brian Burns. They traded a pick for him as well. So he's coming in, but a little bit of doing that was, of course, because Azeez Ojulari, the second round pick from Georgia, hasn't really developed. And that's why you're having to do that in the first place. So it's a defense that's got some talent. Thibodeau did put up 11.5 sacks, but it was, to your point, up and down, and it wasn't always as consistent on that.
Yeah.
I look at Evan Neal on the right.
It was a Darrell Taylor 11 sack season.
It was streaky shooter. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's ice, he is ice. They did not get a good season from John Michael Schmitz last year, the center that we both did like, but just didn't perform up to snuff last year in his rookie year for them. And John Runyon and Evan Neal on the right side give them a potential catastrophe as far as their offensive line is set up. Aaron Stinney is nothing at the left guard position that's anything to shake a stick at. You want to feel good about the Seahawks offensive line, go look at the Giants offensive line. But I think Jalen Hyatt, to me, showed more of potential bust within what he did last year than a guy that's going to really step forward. And you just hope Malik Neighbors can carry the water for them if you're a Giants fan, because he's going to have to. But I think you can get them at home. If this is on the road, 10 a.m. game, maybe be a little bit more of a flattened playing field here for me, from my perspective. But I'm not thinking Daniel Jones is beating us at home. And I think long term, by the end of the season, Drew Lock probably ends up taking over for Daniel.
One way or the other, because Jones gets hurt a lot too. So it feels like it's going to happen by hook or by crook. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. somewhere else. And then that offensive line's not going to do well to keep whoever's back there upright.
Yeah, I do think that Schmitz will be a lot better this year. I will say that, but I don't think Evan Neal's going to be good anywhere. I think he's just toast. So
Sometimes rookie years are tough. That's you got to give a guy. Certainly can't judge him on a rookie year as a final conclusion of who they are and how good they're going to be as a player. To your point on that. So John Michael might be better, but he was almost a league worse. Like Oluwatimi was rated better by PFF than Schmitz last year.
Yeah, it was rough.
It was rough. All right. The next one we've got here, another game at home, and we're going to get our first divisional matchup here with the San Francisco 49ers in week 6, Brendan.
Oh boy. Okay.
Oh boy.
Somehow, some way, they got both their receivers still. They still got Trent Williams. They are running it back. And I find it very hard to believe they would make a trade now after the draft. If you're going to make a trade, you're going to do it before the draft. That's just common sense to me.
It is to me as well, but I will say, Brendan, don't be shocked if Kittle is moved before the start of the season.
Yeah, that one I can see because I think he's out of gas.
Yeah, I'm not saying I see it happening for 100% certainty, but the thing with that is that I think part of this is a reactionary thing where the Niners, I don't think, have been exactly sure on their method of approach here throughout this whole offseason in regards to, it's almost like somebody's got to go off the ship, but they don't want to let anybody go. And then they like, no, okay, it's gotta be you. And it's like, cause I think they thought they could get a second round pick for Deebo Samuel. They couldn't get it. And they didn't want to trade, of course, Brandon Ayuk. They want to pay him, but they know they can't pay Ayuk with all the contracts on the board. So then somebody's got to get Nuz, pushed off. And to me, I could see Kittle being that guy that some contender trades for him, and like I don't know, Jets team or something makes them go for it, move to go for him.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, and I do believe that it's probably the right thing to do everything in your power to run it back. You were one play away from winning the Super Bowl. Like, I would hate to be one play away from winning the Super Bowl and then saying, okay, I'm going to trade one of my starting receivers.
100% agree with you that if I was them, I would make that decision. I think the thing that holds them back from making that decision, Brendan, is there are $38 million reasons in 2025.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do the thing right now here in 2024 with them, which is we're going to pay for this, we're going to give him the money. They're sitting on $6 million right now. So they don't have the money to sign Ayuk to the contract extension. He's going to want to be paid 27.5. Well, he's going to pay $30 million after the AJ Brown extension minimum.
Oh yeah.
So
100%.
If you do a $30 million a year deal with a 4-year contract, that's $120 million. He's going to want, let's say, Brendan, $60 million of that in bonus money at least. Chop that up over 4. That doesn't equal $6 million. So then something's got to then happen commensurate to make that deal go down. And this is where we come back to me, the George Kittle thing. And then if you do just sign him and keep Kittle on, that amount of $38 million in negative money that sits right now only adds that much more when you add Ayuk's contract onto it. I'd still do what you say, though. I would find a way to make it all work this year and say next year the window closes for a season for us. We're going to have to sign Brock Purdy anyway to some $50 million deal. It might as well roll it. We've had a long run on this. We didn't make it do it. Let's make it happen this one last year. And how long is Christian McCaffrey going to last? I would just do it anyway. But I think that's what they're doing here. I think they're dead concerned about that 2025 cap situation as it's currently standing. And they're like, you don't have any more money to really do that.
Yeah, it's just, man, I just don't think I could weaken a team right now. That's like what the Phoenix Suns owner used to do back in the day. He'd have this amazing team and he'd keep crippling them to save money, and then they never got to the finals. And that owner, he's not welcome in Phoenix anymore. So I think you do kind of have to go for it here. But
to your point,
it's gross. It's gross. Don't get me wrong.
It is. To your point, though, would you not say that a lot of when you see Brock Purdy at his best here at this Niners and when he's cooking and looking like quote unquote MVP, like it's when he's got everybody across the board going. And when he's looked weaker and like he's like, oh, he is what we kind of thought he was when they started to lose one or two pieces off the board. He doesn't have a menagerie of guys to toss it to or work with. That's again to your point on that of why I'd keep it the way it is here, just to keep the engine running, because you remove that one part and then now Debo goes down to a major injury and oh goodness, now your team looks mightily different, at least offensively speaking.
Yeah. So I actually don't feel too badly about this one. It's at home. We should be looking at we should be looking at an opportunity here for McDonald to show that he knows what to do against the Shanahan offense, which he's already done it. He's done it before. He did it last year. Purdy threw 4 of his 9 interceptions in that one game or something like that.
They basically took
So
him out of the game because he is kind of like an uncle. Like he was getting, was so betwixt a little bit by what they were doing to him on the back end that they're like, all right, let's just put Darnold out there.
So it's going to come down to whether or not we can score on their defense. And, they've done a pretty good job retaining most of the stuff on defense that made them so great from last year. So that's tough, but I'm going to say we find a way to a win here. I'm going to say we end the slide.
Well, and I'm going to go with a loss just because of what you just said. Drain Greenlaw is probably not going to be back to 100% by that point, and that's one little part where they may have a little bit of a ding, but everybody else is back and in effect there on that defense. Jair Brown comes back another year. I think he comes back stronger there for them and gives them a player that continues to come on for them in that side of it. Devondre Campbell can kind of slide in, I think, to Dre Greenlaw while he's out. And unless they're really facing some of those injuries, I think that they'll be okay. I didn't like Ricky Parasol, but they added an offensive lineman who will start day one for them in Pooney. And I think he'll help to upgrade that line a little bit, even just a little bit, a smidge from where they were over that side. So I think this is a loss. I'm going to have us probably losing the Niners twice. The points you made, though, about the scheme thing, like I talked about the Lions, I think that is applicable. And I think that's a good point about that is that, the part of the way that scheme used to beat you is a lot of the same reasons a team like the Lions could beat you, is that if you're going to make it simple and easy for us, we're going to take advantage of that. We're not going to overthink it. Now, if you make it hard for us, okay, well, now we're on a level playing field. Let's go. But if you're going to make it easy, we're not going to force us to throw 60 yards down the field just because we have to take our shot at one given point in the game. We will dink and dunk you to oblivion.
Yeah. So I don't know. This is going to be, the surprising win of the year, I think. I'm going to say we get a surprising win.
I love it. All right. So we got a win, a W for you, and you're keeping track of your wins and losses, right, over there?
Right.
Okay. So we've got week 7. I think we both have our record at the same place coming into week 7 here. And we're going to be going on the road to the Atlanta Falcons. And we are going to get one of our last remaining. We got one more after this. We got another one more after this, but another 10 a.m. game in Atlanta.
All right. So going to Atlanta, a team that is pretty loaded up for this year, I kind of feel like, and offensively at least. They should be able to put up some points. It should be like those old Matt Ryan teams that were able to turn games in Atlanta into like a track meet where, basically it's just like off to the races. I think this is finally going to be the year they figure out the Kyle Pitts thing. They figure out how to utilize him. They got Drake London. They got a quarterback that knows how to use these weapons now. I think they signed a couple guys in free agency at receiver as well. They got a great offensive line, one of the best in the league, I think. So it's probably going to be a pretty big, it's probably going to be a shootout. If in my estimation, I would expect a shootout here. And defensively, they've got a couple of nice things, but overall, it's not anything that I'm terribly excited about. They've got what's the name of their all-pro corner, AJ Terrell or Terrell?
Yeah, AJ Terrell.
Yeah, he's good. I like him, but overall, I'm expecting a lot of points. And since it's on the road, I'm going to say we lose, but I think there's going to be an opportunity here because I don't think they're going to be able to play much defense.
Yeah, I think that's where it comes down to my thing with this outlook on this game is I see Atlanta's defense here and I go, yeah, your edge rushers don't really scare me. Ebiketti's okay. He's come forward all right. And Jared's still pretty good, but there's not a lot else there. They're hoping Troy Anderson out of that Montana State's going to be a guy that comes forward for them at one of the linebacker positions, but the linebacker positions aren't scary. I think the best players in that defense are probably more in the AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates on the back end and the secondary. And then you've got, Clark Phillips and, I think they're not as strong at the other corners. So they're, like you said, this could be a real shootout potential kind of game Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, that can really test you on the ground. That's been our big weakness in recent years, Brendan, and that's the place that McDonald's really, in my opinion, got the big. As much as anything, I've got to overcome and get this thing solved as much as anything, because this has been such an issue for us. But I do think I'm not quite buying into the Falcons hype as much as anybody. I think this is a 7-win team that they were last year. I think this is a team that's looked at itself as a championship contender, and they're not, and that they should not have gone for the Cousins route. And so this should be a year where they're really turning things around and trying to go a different direction of it. So I'm actually going to put a win on this one, because I don't think Cousins just comes in there and gets the chemistry with these wide receivers day one, where he's right there on the same page. You mentioned the offensive line. That's legit. The run game, legit. And I think Cousins will be good in that offense, but I just, for whatever reason, got us feeling like a W on this when I bring all the factors. Raheem Morris, you are changing the offense too. I mean, this is going now from that run-heavy offense to now trying to be the pass-heavy offense. Okay, you have a good offensive line in there, well-rated pass run, but what happens when the pass run splits, flip a little bit, and they've got to pass protect a little bit? Is more, are they as good? We'll see on that part.
Yeah, I think there's going to be an opportunity to win this game. And, maybe it'll play out like last year's Dallas game, where both teams just keep scoring and scoring and scoring. While I would agree that Cousins might not get rhythm with these receivers from day one, this will be week 7. They'll have had an opportunity to feel each other out by then, right? Like week 7, you've got a pretty decent amount of reps.
I think it depends on what we're talking about as far as the level of chemistry. And when you're talking about having a couple of years with a guy where, Geno Smith with DK and Tyler, or Geno Smith with a JSN, having a whole year from last year, and then coming into this year having a whole another training camp, versus a guy that's had a training camp in 7 weeks. I think that it's like, okay, there's like a, be like a line graph, Brendan, where you get to the top line graph on the chemistry and you're like, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams level chemistry. Yeah. And then there's a little bit of a line graph that goes down. Will he have some chemistry with him by that point? Yeah. But can he rush that and make that the equivalency of having that year and a half or 2 years worth of time on the practice field and 1,000 throws to a guy, whatever it is? No, I don't think you can. I think the only way to replicate that is through hard work and through all the practice time it takes to get there for that.
Okay. Yeah. So should be fun. I could see us winning, but I'm going to stick with the L for now. I think that in Atlanta, again, when they have a high-powered offense in Atlanta, it's tough because they're playing indoors in that dome. It's hard to deal with.
That's a fair point. Certainly a fair point. If this was a loss, it wouldn't shock me for those reasons, especially 10 a.m. game. We might have to resolve that whole thing that Carroll had kind of figured out there. It might be a bit of an issue again now going forward. Week, I will go with a W on it myself, though it will be another close game, I think.
And there's a small chance, by the way, we could be facing another rookie quarterback in this game.
That is very true.
Possible.
That is very third rookie quarterback in the first 7 weeks. It's definitely in play there, Brendan, especially if there's some issues with the recovery of the Achilles, or even just past the recovery of Achilles. You got an older Cousins who's played 6 weeks to that point. If he gets beaten up or something goes down, that could also be a part that plays into this. So yeah, definitely something to think about there. We turn this around to week 8, Brendan, and we do come back home. So a little short trip out on the road, and then we're back home to take the Buffalo Bills on in a 1:00 matchup.
All right. The Buffalo Bills. Patrick Mahomes won a Super Bowl with no receivers. Let's see if you can do it too, Josh Allen.
That's right. Exactly. Or Dalton Kincaid, I guess, will be their number one guy there.
I guess he's pretty good, but man. So this is definitely going to be an interesting one as well. Buffalo, obviously, very good team for the last several years now. Starting to feel like the window is closing with that Josh Allen deal really kicking in. They did come away from this draft with Keon Coleman, who is an interesting player, but not necessarily one that I like as a number one receiver, not necessarily one that I think is going to be able to carry the load here. They actually did quite a few things in this draft that I liked looking at it. They got Dwayne Carter. They got Cedric Van Pran, who I thought was a great steal. Although, do you think he's a day one starter for them?
Yeah, they lost because they lost Mitch Morris. Yeah, they lost Mitch Morris. So he's in there. Connor McGovern's there. So, I mean, Connor's functional, but if Cedric came, the other thing with Cedric I liked about him is I think he can play some guard too. So I think he can push the guard. But they've done kind of legit. They're more of that, like, it fits for Van Pran too. Remember the whole thing Van Pran was like, well, he doesn't do the real mobile stuff, the mobility based, like get him out in space. But this is the same team in the Bills that took Osiris Torrance last year. So I think that they definitely signaled to you there in their alignment that we just want big space eaters. Just give us, freakishly large human beings more than the guys that are going to, move around and bump around. So I think he could probably fit them even in some guard if they need him to kick in there too.
Right. So I'm going to say this year begins kind of the downfall of the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to
Mm.
say they slip a little bit, and I'm going to say at home, week 8, we find a way to get it done.
I like where you're coming from with it. I do think there's something to be said about, is there a little bit of, look at the defense and you got guys coming off major injury on that defense. Can they come back and bounce back and be as good as they were before? Did the safety positions taken a couple hits from where they were? Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde having moved on from there as well. So there is a little bit of a change over there, to your point on that. I do still think at the end of the day that Josh Allen's a problem. And he's got enough there that they've given him. I would like to see him have more. I don't like them just going, okay, Keon Coleman, Diggs, flip it. I hate that for those doing that to a young quarterback like that. You want to go opposite direction of something like that, I think, with a quarterback. But I still think he's enough of a problem that at home, I think your points are all right on that. The Bills, I think they'll be a playoff team in the AFC next year. I don't think they'll be like a number one contending type team up there for that number one seed. So I do go with the loss on this one just because of Allen's ability to improvise and make stuff happen, makes just crap happen. But I can see find this way to find path as well to win.
Yeah, the part that I'm trying to figure out that's kind of hard is, will Sean McDermott be able to come up with another top 5 defense this year? Because last year he did, even though they had a ton of injuries. They lost Milano, they lost the defensive tackle who started the season really well for them, Daquan Jones, and they lost Tre'Davious White. And somehow, some way, they were still a really good defense. But I'm wondering if that's not sustainable. And I kind of feel like it probably isn't. So,
to your point, the secondary, man, Tre'Davious White's out. They've drafted Kyer Elam a couple of years ago, and he's not really kind of ascended into that starting spot as of yet. Rasul Douglas, long journeyman guy, is going to be your starter out there on their side. So you've kind of turned over your safeties, turned over your corners. Their secondary looks like a big fat question mark as it stands right now. They've still got some players on the front seven that are interesting, especially Matt Milano and Daquan returning. But that secondary definitely can end up sinking them, and it could be that the Bills have to win a lot of shootouts this year because of that secondary. We got a lot of these games on this, you got to say on the schedule, even early on, you can see here, Brendan, where we can end up in a lot of shootouts here with the way that this could go if our defense is still kind of onboarding, but the offense really takes against some of these defenses that have some weaknesses that can be exploited.
Right. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a surprise. It's not going to be easy, but they're flying 3,000 miles to get here too. Let's keep that in mind.
They are. They've got to come out to our side. That's not easy on those East Coast teams. I think it's a little harder to go out to the West than it's out to the East necessarily, but it's still no walk in the park. But they lose Diggs. He relied on Diggs a lot there. They feel real good about Khalil Shakir there being a guy that can ascend and become their one. They also lost Gabriel, so they've kind of lost both the 1 and the 2 wide receivers this offseason. So they're going to really hope that these guys can step right in and get flowing. I mean, they're basically turning their whole receiver core over. Even Curtis Samuel is going to be their slot, Brendan. So
yeah,
all 3 new receivers. We're talking about chemistry and all of that with a new quarterback. We'll see where that is early in the season as the NFL when we have to play them. But they're still very talented. Either offensive line, they've done a good job with Van Prans and your Osiris Torrances and getting Connor McGovern in there to at least give Josh Allen a good offensive line play in front of him to keep things stabilized.
Yeah, I could see it going either way for sure.
What did you have it down for, though?
I'm going to say we win this one.
All right, you got to win on that one. All right, so we've got coming on up, I've got a loss on the Bills week 9. We are going to be back at home, remaining at home here, and we are going to take on the Los Angeles Rams at a 1:00 game.
All right. This is a key litmus test, I think, for Mike McDonald. Can he do what Pete couldn't quite figure out how to do?
That's right.
So the Rams, they had a decent enough offseason overall. Their draft had some things that I liked, had some things that I didn't like so much. Verse was a good pick. The Braden Fisk thing, I think, was they gave up way too much to get him. They didn't really have any dead money. They kind of took all the dead money on last year, and now it's just done with. I was looking at their books a couple months ago, and I was surprised. Like, they've got no real problems. I think most of their dead money comes from Brian Allen, the center that they cut right before free agency or right after free agency started. So looking
Well,
at it like,
they got clipped hard by the Donald thing, though.
oh yeah, the Donald thing that did. Okay, you're right. That did come up. That was after I looked at it. I remember looking at it and they had like 500,000 dead. And then yeah, Donald did change everything.
He gets him for 2 years, by the way. Again, to the people that like to say, Brendan, with the, the salary cap's not a real thing. It doesn't exist. Like, go look at the Donald contract for the next 2 years and what they got to pay and what they're eating on the books on that deal to make it happen.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? The fact that the player can willingly retire and the team still has to pay them as if they're there. Like, do you feel like
Well,
that?
technically, the team can, in these situations, come back and ask for signing bonus back. It's just a goodwill nature thing by teams throughout the league when they reach a player at this point that they're going to say, you've been a good soldier here through this time. Like we did this with a lot of our guys, right? From the Doug Baldwins on down, where it's like, well, technically we come back, but no team does that for those kind of players like that. And I would register to guess, Brendan, that in the Aaron Donald situation, the Rams were very aware of his possible retirement because remember he was kind of flirting with this a couple of even seasons ago, where they probably, he wanted to tell them, look, I'll come back and sign this deal. I'm already kind of thinking about it. But if I do want to retire at this point, I want to make sure this money's in my pocket if I do come back to you guys. And that was the leverage he had kind of over the Rams at that time, coming off the Super Bowl win, where his, he was at that's what sucks. You have to pay the player when they're coming off, like, when they're at their epicenter of the height of their powers. You're like, oh, we got to pay the full price. But yeah, I was looking at it for a couple of shows I was doing, and I was like, man, they are both this year with their dead money and into next year, even where you're like, well, by 25, they'll definitely be a little bit more further removed. And it's like, Brendan, they saved their $38 million of dead money next year, $38.5 million of dead money with Donald's deal next year. Like it's still, I think they collectively saved, but it's like, it's brutal.
So my question would be, who's going to be the Rams quarterback by week 9? Because Stafford was able to get through most of the season last year, but I do feel like he's on borrowed time. Had a spine injury a couple years ago, almost retired then, decided to come back. Was really good last year, don't get me wrong, but he's old and he's already struggling to get it through a full season. So I am kind of wondering if Stafford's the quarterback by then. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right about, to me, that's being the big part of where my assessment would be on this game and where it would go would be where's Stafford at from a health standpoint on either of the two matchups of when we face the Rams in this particular season. And like you say, he's a little bit of a roll of the dice every year as to whether or not he's going to have injuries that sink him or not. Even last year, he had a thumb injury and a couple other things going on. He fought through it. He always can seemingly grit through stuff, but there's also times where he can get just basically taken down by it. I think that if he is playing in this game, that they probably find a way to win it. I think that they have done a good job of building this team back up. Like you said, though, I did kind of poo-poo a little bit of the fact that they're not eating any dead money. Even though you're eating the Aaron Donald dead money, you're not eating the $57 million of dead money they were eating last year. And they got to the playoffs last year with $57 million of dead money in the books, which to me speaks to the job McVay did as a coach and also speaks to how good Stafford played last year. And one of those games he played great in, Brendan, was the Ravens game on the road, where I believe the Ravens were just able to nip them at the end, but Stafford was having a really similar game to what he did with us week 1, where he was just cutting them up. And so I will put this myself as a loss because I'm not going to quite anticipate in this one that Stafford will be out by this point. I will actually flip it in my next outlook on the next Rams game, Brendan, and have it look a little bit of a different way on this one. But on this opening one, even though it is at home, I think that Stafford and company will be strong enough to give it to us at that point where I will put down an L on this one.
I think I'm going to go that way as well. I think I'm feeling that way too. It's tough. Yeah. And, I think there will be opportunities there. I don't think this Rams team is going to be great overall. I think they did lose. I mean, they lost probably their best player, right? Like Donald was still their best player, even over Kupp or Stafford.
Yeah, because he's a force multiplier. When he's on that defensive line, he makes everybody else better because of the amount of attention that he draws. I mean, no player like that to me, even as good as Stafford's been for them, is in the same realm.
So yeah, I'm going to say a loss here as well, I think.
All right, so we got a loss there on the books for Brendan. We turn ourselves over here to week 10, as I do have a loss in this one as well. I also think the Rams are going to do a lot of running the ball this year at a much higher rate than they ever have before, Brendan. With the way that they built this lineup, with the way that they drafted another running back to pair with Kyron Williams, I think they're going to hammer the ground game. And I think that game's going to be a lot about them playing keep away a little bit with our offense. Week 10. You're going to love to hear this. We come to week 10, Brendan. We got ourselves a bye in week 10. So I would say almost as perfectly placed as you could ask a bye to be placed. Certainly much better than last year's week 4. The Seattle Seahawks get their bye in week 10 of this year, Brendan, right smack dab in the middle of the schedule.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I like it. I'm down for it.
Can't beat it, man. Can't beat it. Come back into week 11, and we now are going to face the San Francisco 49ers for the second time in this given season. We're going to be back on the road at a 1:00 start time. I didn't mention, by the way, it was a home game. It was the 5:15 primetime game against the 49ers. Was a Thursday night football game on that other matchup, for whatever that's worth.
Right. I feel better about picking the win now.
Well, there you go. This one's going to be just a regular 1:00 though, on the road in San Fran.
All right. We already talked about the opponent, so not much will have changed by now, probably. But on the road, I don't like playing on that field. I don't like playing in that stadium. So I'm going to have to say we drop it. We fall to the 49ers, and it hurts me to pick a loss coming off the bye week because you should be able to use the bye week productively to prepare for your next opponent. But I think they're still just going to be a little too much on the road.
Yeah, agreed. I just think this will be the year where there's a little bit of a transitional state going on with San Fran. So I'm going to just come to the bottom line on this being, I just think this is a year where we still have to just be a little bit patient. I think we play them tough in both matchups. I don't think that it's as runaway as it's been at times in recent years, but I do think that they are going to be all oars in the water this season, trying to do whatever they can to squeeze out this last year, understanding that the sands of their hourglass is slowly running out. And we're just not necessarily in that same place. I think we could find ourselves here by this week 11 game, for instance, with the Niners, Brendan, and they make some trade deadline deal in the hopes of maximizing this final potential Super Bowl window year that they're looking at here. So I'm going to still put it down as the L for me. I don't like doing it. I know I'm going to catch some heat for it, but I got to be honest with the people.
I don't think you'll catch that much heat for it. It's understandable.
Yeah, I feel it makes sense to me at least. All right, well, let's keep it rolling here. We're going to come back week 12, and Brendan, we're going to get another NFC West matchup here where you're going to go back home and play the Arizona Cardinals at 1:25 at home.
All right, the Arizona Cardinals, a team that, to my surprise, seems to be trending in a pretty positive direction. I thought they were making all the wrong moves a year ago, but I don't hate where they are right now at all. I still don't know what's going to happen at quarterback. This is probably kind of the make or break year for Kyler's future in Arizona, and he's going to have to play very well to justify that contract as it starts to expand. But I like what they've done starting to build their offensive line. Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the second best player in that draft for me. So they were able to get him, which is obviously great. I thought they did some other pretty good things in the draft as well. So I think they're trending in the right direction. Jonathan Gannon doesn't seem like he's that bad either. I got to say, credit where credit's due. I thought he did a good job keeping that team relatively competitive last year. But playing at home, knowing that we've traditionally had some pretty good success against Kyler and generally speaking have done well against this Cardinals team during his quote-unquote era, I don't think they've done quite enough to be able to stop us offensively. I don't think that Cardinals defense really has that much that excites me. Zaven Collins hasn't really developed to be much of anything, not seen much from their cornerback position. So I think we can do good there. LJ Collier revenge game. You got to be scared about that. Of course.
You do, man. You do. Mm-hmm. He's ready to break out. He's ready to break out.
You know, that's why they drafted Darius Robinson, in case they can't keep LJ Collier.
Yeah, well, they have Darius to hope he can learn from LJ. Really, that's what's going on. It's a tutelage thing. It's a mentorship. Learn from the master, if you were.
But I am going to say we find a way to get this one done.
Yeah, I think all the points you mentioned just now, Brendan, I'm in solidarity with. I have liked overall the things that they've done organizationally there with Gannon, and I can't deny the fact that he certainly has did much better with that unit last year than I thought he was going to do. Even games that they didn't necessarily win, they were in and they were fighting down and scrapping the last minute, and that's always I think a little bit of emblematic of how good the coach is doing at motivating those guys when they know walking into it that they're going to be undermanned, that they don't have the firepower necessarily to stand toe to toe with people. This is going to come down to, I think, a lot in this game and both two matchups of the Cardinals with how you stop the run. James Conner, Trey Benson. Trey Benson was, in my opinion, the best back in this draft. James Conner has been a problem and had been an issue. Seahawks tackling has been an issue. Conner is just the type of back that can give our team those problems at times when that's been the struggle. So I think how you deal with that as much as what you do with Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison and Michael Wilson over on the other side, it's going to be to me more of what you do with the running back position, how you stop that run that game, which will dictate it. I still think we've got too much for them. I'm not buying in on the Cardinal hype, Brendan. I think he did a little bit of a better job, but we thought you were going to be god awful and you were just bad.
Yeah.
Still not going to quite get you to the point of saying, well, let me give you the gold star and put you in that position of feeling like you're really coming forward in a major way. So I've got this as a win.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that's week 12. What's week 13?
Week 13, we are going back out on the road, and this is going to be the final 10 a.m. game of the year for us, Brendan. So only 3 10 a.m. games, not too shabby on the schedule in full.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to take on the New York Jets at 10 a.m. on the road.
New York Jets. All right. So this is definitely an interesting one. That Jets team is pretty all in to try to win now. I don't know how optimistic I am about their odds of having a positive result, but obviously they're going to get way more stuff from their quarterback this year. Saleh usually produces a really good defense, so I'm sure that Jets defense is going to find a way to be very good either way. Would have loved for them to end up with like a Brock Bowers in the draft, but they did get they got Fashanu in the draft, right?
Yeah, which I think, wouldn't you say that's probably more important for them with the, I would have loved to see him get him Bowers too with Aaron, but the thing with Aaron is he's never been real prodigious with working his tight ends. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't do the Fashanu move, you're going to ride on Tyron Smith being your guy all year that was going to stand the test of time.
Yeah, they probably had to do it, admittedly, but it would have been much more fun, I think, is what I'm trying to say with Bowers. But
yeah, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. But that was a good pick by them. I think overall they had a pretty decent draft, if I'm recalling correctly. And going on the road, I'm going to say this is probably going to be a loss. I think that Jets team is going to be pretty good this year.
Yeah, like you said, you got to start out with the defense first and foremost, a defense that has been supremely held back by the quarterback position and the lack of productivity on that offensive side of the ball for the Jets for a couple of years now. But they've done their part to show that they are, legitimate. They've got not only guys that are established there that are good players, but up and coming guys that you probably are going to see come a little bit more for Jermaine Johnson, Michael Clemens. They traded for Hassan Reddick. They've still got Will McDonald that we both liked that was going to be a raw guy that was going to take some time to develop. So him coming out last year and not necessarily, even though he was a first round pick, giving you a lot of production at only 3 sacks, still was a guy that I think does trend up for the future for them as a player. And this comes down to a little bit, I look at this, Brendan, wouldn't you say, like the Rams matchup, where you really, as much as any of the teams you play in your schedule, go, well, if they've got their QB, probably an L. But if they don't got their QB, probably a W. And that you don't feel at all the least bit worried about going to the backup against this team versus what you might have to deal with Aaron Rodgers, especially with the playmakers they've got him. Mike Williams, they brought over the Chargers. Can he stay healthy or not? We'll see. But Malachi Corley, they got him a Deebo Samuel in this offense. And I think that's going to help Rodgers out considerably, just have kind of an outlet guy that they can just manufacture stuff to at times.
Who's their backup quarterback again?
Tyrod Taylor and then Jordan Travis.
Oh, Tyrod's not too bad. That's actually about as good a backup quarterback as you're going to find. Okay.
Yeah, he's okay. He's getting up there in age, and the last couple times he's gone out there and backed up hasn't been phenomenal. So, but I think that there's a big drop from Rodgers to Tyrod, and
there's definitely.
And that's where if he's out there, then I'd put this as a W. But with Aaron out there, I got to give it as a win to the Jets. And I think the Jets did the proper thing to get the line right this offseason, truly, for as much as they could for Rodgers to try to maximize this thing in the right way.
So I think I'm at 6-6 right now.
Okay. Have we gone through 12? Is that right?
Yeah, because that was week 13 and we had the bye week.
Okay. I probably didn't count one of my weeks here. Hold on. So I'm at W 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So why am I at? All right. So 5, 6. So I'm 6-6 too.
Okay.
We're both at 6-6 state right now.
Beautiful.
I think I'm right on that. I'll have to recount it up here at the end, but I believe I'm at that. All right, week 14. We come back in now, week 14, Brendan, and we're going to go on the road again, back-to-back weeks going on the road here. 1:00 game against the Arizona Cardinals. So
All right.
Back up with them again here.
All right. I'm gonna stick to it here. I'm gonna say we're better than them. I'm gonna say we're in a better spot than them as of right now. I'm gonna say we get another win against Arizona. Not much will have changed. We played them literally 2 weeks prior.
Yeah, same outlook here. It'll be based on how you run, but I don't see anything real different in this matchup. Playing them on the road is no different type of thing here. Another part that can affect that Jets game too is that weather. That was one of the few games on that was the weather thing there, because there's not many games on the back end of the schedule, Brennan, and looking at it that we have to deal with weather situation. Everything looks pretty good on that. It'll be pretty, climate controlled conditions or warm weather places. But no, of course, you not deal with that here with the Cardinals. So again, I think this is a W. So easy enough on that one. I think we kind of explained that one, the other one.
Yeah, not much else to say.
Not much else to say. So we both are at 7-6 here, that we have different wins and losses on the board. We come back to week 15, and this is going to be I don't think this is a primetime matchup, but this is going to be a 1:00 game. Oh, no, this is a primetime matchup. Excuse me. So this is going to be a Sunday night football game, Brendan, against the Green Bay Packers.
All right. It's in Seattle?
In Seattle.
All right. So Packers obviously showed some pretty impressive things last year. Defense still got some problems on that side, and they lost Devondre Campbell, right?
They did lose that to the Niners. Yes, sir.
Yep.
They did get your bed. They did get Cooper, though. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Edgerrin Cooper. That was they had a good draft to start, and then I thought they kind of went off the rails as it went on a little bit, but it was still overall pretty good. Obviously, their offense trending in the right direction. By the way, sorry if the video is freaking out on you guys right now. I'm shaky frame rate right now, but I think you guys can hear me fine, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
You're coming through all right.
All right. So I think that, this one comes down to having home field advantage. I think being able to play this game at home is big. Hard to go into Green Bay and win. In fact, we've done it once in the last 30 years,
it's
to my
home.
knowledge.
Oh, yeah,
exactly.
Okay. Sorry, I just made
sure. So playing this game at home, I actually feel pretty dang good about this one, personally. I think that people are getting a little too excited about Green Bay because they won that first playoff game and probably should have beaten the Niners, which I think kind of really came to overshadow the fact that they were a pretty average team in the regular season. That was basically, they got into the playoffs by a tiebreaker, if I recall correctly, because it was the Seahawks and the Packers, and they had the tiebreaker. So I'm not looking at them as some kind of future juggernaut the way everyone else is. Everyone's like penciling them in as a Super Bowl contender this year. I'm not really feeling it that way. They're going to be good, but I think at home we can get it done and we can get the win.
Yeah, I'm definitely a person believing in the hype of the Packers, Brendan. They were the youngest team in the NFL last year, and as you said, got as far as they did get in the playoffs, albeit that they needed the tiebreaker. I think it's also an explanation when you come back to a team, being a team that is a bit of a mixed bag throughout the course of a season. You go, oh, are they a mixed bag because they're just terribly inconsistent, or are they a mixed bag because they're a young team that's learning how to play together, that's learning how to win? And especially when it comes to a guy like Jordan Love, this is the first time he's getting his true opportunity to go out there and start. And as I will say about a guy like Sam Howell, I'll say it about a guy like Jordan Love, where you've got to give these guys that opportunity to, truly go out there and find their footing and discover, what they can do at the position, take their lumps a little bit. And when you look at Jordan Love, Brendan, first season starting, throws for 4,100 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. When you go to Aaron Rodgers, and the first season that he went to start, truly got to start his first opportunity in 2008 after he'd been in the league for 3 years. He only threw for 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, and more interceptions. So Love, in his first starting season, had more yards, more touchdowns, and less interceptions than Aaron Rodgers when he got his first opportunity. Mm-hmm. I put all that together along with an offseason where you look at what they did, Brendan, and I love their draft, man. I think if I all the way through, I thought they had now Katana Oladipo later. They got the Evan Williams kid from Oregon later. Jordan Morgan's going to be an awesome Packer lineman who can play both tackle and guard, where you can make left or right tackle. They got Bullard out of Georgia, the safety, who I think is going to be a player for them on the back end. They signed Xavier McKinney. They got Josh Jacobs at the running back position. Hell, they even got that USC running back to basically play the third running back role for them behind Dillon. So their running back room is really well, thoroughly built. And I think the receivers are going to come along with the development of those guys. They got a good core there. So go ahead.
Wait,
Sorry.
Who's their starting running back?
Josh Jacobs.
Okay. I was thinking they lost Aaron Jones. I was just trying to remember who they picked up to replace him. Okay.
Yeah. They did lose Aaron Jones, but you got Jacobs, Dillon, and then Marshawn Lloyd, the kid out of USC, is their.
Yeah, I wasn't big on Lloyd, but that role for him should be totally fine.
As a third down back, I think he can be a grinder or not third, but as a third back in that rotation, I think he can be, a decent little grinder to get you some. I don't think he's gonna be anything special, but he's okay. And I think that defense is going to come along. Xavier McKinney, they signed in free agency. Edgerrin Cooper will fit. I think potentially gives them an upgrade over Campbell and maybe out the jump there with his ability. As some people saw him as you were even flirting for a time with having as your number one inside linebacker. In the draft.
Yeah,
so
he was great.
And they've got some young guys they've drafted through the years that I think that they think the last couple of years here, like Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker, Eric Stokes. I think they feel like these guys are going to kind of continue to come forward as players. So I still think this is, to me, one of the most dangerous teams in the NFC, along with the 49ers. This is a team that, to me, truly can contend for number one seed. And I think that they have overtaken the Lions in where they are as a team right now. So I'm buying the hype. I got it as a loss, 7-7 here. I just like what the Packers are doing.
Yeah, I think they'll be good. I'm just not quite drinking all that Kool-Aid. I'm drinking some of it. I'm not drinking all of it.
I get it. There's some cheese in it. So, who wants to drink Kool-Aid with cheese in it, man?
Right.
Okay, well, we get to week 16. We're just barreling along here. I'm at 7-7. I think you're 8-6,
yes,
I believe.
That's right.
And so we are going to stay in the NFC North. In fact, there's a lot of NFC North to finish off this schedule, Brendan. You're going to get the Minnesota Vikings at 1:00 at home.
All right, Minnesota Vikings. Probably JJ McCarthy.
I would think by that point.
Yeah, I kind of expect him to start day one, but if not, he'll probably be starting by now. Who else do they have, right? They have the guy they traded for from Dobbs, right? They still have him, I think.
It's Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and Sam Darnold. I think they have both.
Well, they paid Darnold $9 million to be the backup.
Oh man. Oh wow.
8 or 9. They gave him a chunk of change. So
I forgot about how much money that was. Okay. Well, either way, he probably won't be playing. It'll probably be McCarthy. And he's gonna have some good receivers to work with, He's obviously got the Justin Jefferson revenge tour after last year got derailed by the injury, which is a big deal.
Jordan Addison,
really nice rookie year.
Hawkins.
So, they've got some stuff to worry about. They kept Danielle Hunter, correct? They still got him around, or
no? Danielle Hunter's gone. That's where they drafted Dallas Turner in the first round, trading back up to get Turner to replace him.
Huh. Okay.
They kind of they sort of took the Falcons approach in the draft, where they went, all right, we're going to take our quarterback first, and then now we just have to because they knew their defense's ass. So they were like, we just have to triple back down to the defense all the way through the rest of the draft. Does that almost all the way through. I mean, I think they had like one or two other picks that were. So you go McCarthy is your first, then you go back to Dallas Turner, then you take a cornerback. They take a tackle. I guess they got a center as well, but then another defensive tackle. They didn't have a lot of picks because of all their trading. It's like they had 4 picks in the 6th and 7th round. Right. So not a lot that they worked with in their draft. And that defense needed some help, Brendan. I mean, Flores was doing all he could with scheming and trying to blitz his ass off, but there's only so much you can do when you're missing talent.
So it feels like a shootout maybe, but I do wonder if McDonald's defense can make JJ McCarthy uncomfortable, because we all know he feels most comfortable when everything's going according to plan. And as soon as things stop going according to plan, not so much. So I'm actually kind of feeling a win here. I feel like we can get it done against Minnesota. 1 second, by the way. You go ahead and keep going, but I'll be right back.
Yeah, you're good. I'm in agreement with Brendan on this one. I think this is going to be a win here. I don't buy into the defense being good enough upgrades across the board in what the Vikings are doing here. They signed Jonathan, I think it was Greenyard or Bolliard this offseason to be an edge rusher. I don't think their front seven provides you a lot of fear. Ivan Pace is a deadly blitzer, but he is an undersized inside linebacker. You can come downhill on this kind of guy in the run game, especially where you can attack them. I also don't know if I see necessarily as much of the shootout potential here, because I just don't know if I would ever see JJ McCarthy in a shootout and think that that's a guy that's going to roll that out and make that happen. I think it helps him to have those two receivers on the outside, and Addison and Jefferson, that can get open quickly for you and make the position, your quarterbacking a lot easier. But I don't expect McCarthy to walk in and kind of give that Cousins-like acumen from the position. So I have this as a win as well. I think this actually will be a fairly comfortable win when it's all said and done.
How good do you think that Vikings team will be this year overall?
I think that they very likely have a very good chance of being the fourth best team in that division. I think that them and Chicago are going to be duking it out for fourth place. Huh. I don't think that they're going to be bad fourth places. I don't think they're going to be like a 4-win team or 3-win. They'll be one of those things where they're fourth place and they're 6 wins or 7 wins. But I look at the quarterbacks and I go, it's either going to be McCarthy or Darnold. And while everybody is looking at that Vikings team and going, well, the line's good, and he's got pass catchers to throw to, and they're good, but I don't think it's enough to elevate him in itself. And Aaron Jones going there at his point is crazy. Okay, that's all right. But Ty Chandler's your back of the running back position. Jones is likely at some point to get, probably being he's had a lot of mileage taken off the tires. He is getting older. I think I'm not just buying into what the Vikings are doing quite yet. I think the coach is good as an offensive play caller and all that, but they don't. This seems like a team in a transition year when I look at them.
All right. So we both feeling a win there. Both feeling pretty okay there.
Both feeling a win there. Come back here to week 17 in our final prime time matchup, though we may get one more beyond this because the week 18 matchup is TBD. Brendan.
Right.
So we've got week 17. We're going to go into Chicago. This is Chicago. And we're going to take on the Bears, but this is going to be a primetime matchup. So not a 10 a.m. game, but a 5:15 matchup on December 26th, just a day there after Christmas. So Caleb Williams and the Boas. How you see that one playing out?
I'm a little worried about this one. Chicago in January, man. Going to Chicago. It's going to be cold. Might be snowing. This could be a snow game too. It's going to be windy. It's going to be all these weather conditions that make life hard. So I'm a little bit worried about this one. I don't think that Bears team is going to be great, but that offense could be a lot of fun. That offense, they've got a lot of fun weapons. If it comes together, I know that it's become very trendy over the last couple of months for Seahawks fans to pretend that Shane Waldron was terrible, which I don't know why, but he's not. I think he could actually do pretty well with that team. I think he could do pretty well with that squad. And I think this is going to be kind of the quote-unquote surprising loss. Kind of like last year when I kept thinking we were going to lose to the Steelers at the end of the season. I felt it coming. It was going to be that weird game where things just wouldn't go our way and it'd be close and it'd be ugly and then we just lose it. So I'm going to say this is that year's version of that, just kind of the weird loss, if you will.
That's fair enough. That's completely fair enough. Well, I do think with Caleb Williams, he's got a long way to go to get into a place of working within structure within the offense in the way that he does. And I think he's going to need some time in that development to get there. I do like what the Bears have done to give him a position now where they didn't give Justin Fields this kind of place to land in and have success and give him an opportunity to actually make some action happen in that rookie deal. But Caleb's got a long way to go in cleaning up some of the things in his game, especially specifically around playing on time, playing on script, which is what NFL coaches are going to want. He's not going to be able to, in my opinion, just sit back and freelance back there, crazy style. And so I will put this as a win for me because it's a prime time. If there's a 10 a.m. game, I might be moved in a different direction. The weather will be potentially a huge factor here in one of the few games on the schedule where that is going to come into play. And the Bears got a defense coming forward as well. The Montez Sweat trade. They've drafted some good guys. They've got Jalen out there on the outside. Cornerback's a good corner for them. Brisker out of Penn State. They took a safety. He's been really good for them. So they've been putting some pieces together there. But I think we're in the hunt at this point for a playoff seed. I think that drives a bit of this. I think, as I was saying before, the Bears and the Vikings will be kind of duking it out at this point where they're looking more to. So when's Cabo coming? Are we almost to Cabo?
That's a factor too, because when you get to the end of the season and you have teams that are just out of it, you punch them in the mouth once and they're just going to lay down sometimes because they're like, what are we fighting for here, man? That's
right. Especially a cold weather game. You get down by a couple touchdowns and maybe you can kind of put your foot on their throat and, just kind of force your way through the rest of the game. Just lean on them a little bit. So I'll go with a W on this, which leads us to the very last game of the season, which will be up against the Los Angeles Rams.
At home.
No, this is on the road.
Oh, I had the early. Oh, okay. Right. Okay. You're right. There we go. All right. So that's week 18 against the Rams. This could be for a playoff spot. I wonder. There's definitely a scenario here where this is for a playoff spot. You also have to wonder, will Stafford be healthy by then? Will the full 17 game season have maybe knocked him out at this point? Because I talked about how he's kind of hanging on the edge here. He's missed he missed a little bit of time last year, missed a lot of time the previous year. He's old, a lot of miles on him too. A lot of miles.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say we're going to split with the Rams. I had us losing the first game, so I'm going to actually have us winning this one.
Yeah, I come out of the bottom line for me on the two real tough matchups in our division, Brendan, being the Niners, the Rams. I just came out of it saying, look, we'll get a win out of that. We're probably losing, dropping 3 there, but we're coming out with a win. This one, the final week of the season, I don't know if I think, like you mentioned at the top, and it's always hard to predict injury and all of this, but to me, to think that Stafford at 36 years old, I think in a year where you're not going to have a defense that you're going to be able to lean on, they're going to try to lean on the running game as much as they can, but it's going to come down a lot of times, I think, to him throwing the ball across the field for them to win football games. And I think he takes his share of little extra hits in there, and that body is, one bad hit away. I can see him making it through the first part of the schedule, but by getting to the end of the point, you're not necessarily getting Stafford at that point. You're getting Carson Wentz. And if it's Carson Wentz on the road, then I got us winning that all day. So I would say that's what this game will come to as far as a prediction for me, Brendan. And I will predict that I think that that's probably what's going to happen with this. It just feels like a year with me with Donald retiring, where if Donald was out there at the Rams, I would put him into a place of saying this is still truly a contender. But with them now, it seems they're going to be really strong still as long as Stafford's up there and rolling. But it's all really on his shoulders to make sure he's out there getting it done, because they need him making those amazing throws, bending the bullet and all that stuff.
Right. All right. So that's the season.
That's the season. That's it right there. So what was your final tally?
I had 10 wins.
And I had 10 wins as well. I will say it gets to me to 9, and it would be to 9-8 if Stafford played in that game. So if you are playing Stafford again there on the road at the end of the season, I'm going to knock it down. It will be really based on my kind of outlook there between the two. But Brendan, let's say this. Let's address this thing. Really, and you take a look at the schedule kind of fully now as you see it. In my opinion, there are a couple of factors here that are the big distinctions about when you look at a schedule and you go, whether I like the schedule or I don't. Daunting runs, right, Brendan? Last year we had the daunting run where you had the Ravens, the 49ers twice, the Cowboys, the Eagles, right? And it was all stacked in there. I think like you had one little Washington respite in there, but it was a horrible 3 games in 15 nights.
Rams
were in there as well. So daunting runs on the schedule, gauntlet runs on the schedule. Good timing on the bye, something you're looking for. No European trips. Avoid 10 a.m. games as much as possible because those are just problematic. And then how much prime time? And in my opinion, Brendan, when I look at all those factors, I kind of find myself going almost all the way down, giving you either an A or an A- in what the NFL did for us with this schedule, and feeling like in my outlook on it that the NFL did as right by us as they've done by us when it comes to the schedule in recent years.
Yeah, closest thing to a gauntlet might be Niners, Falcons, Bills, Rams, Niners.
That was my outlook as well. 6 to 9.
That depends on how you perceive the Falcons and Bills. Some people are not going to believe in those teams.
Right. Exactly. And it could prove to be that, but that gauntlet one that we had to run last year, Brendan, we looked at it, and I remember when we talked about it, it looked bad on paper last year. We looked at it when you went, there's no way to twist your way out of this and hope for injury on this one. Like, this is just going to be us going through, one after another, just trying to basically survive through that stretch of games, especially those 3 games in 15 nights, the 2 Thursday night games stacked around it. It was brutal. But this one has been you're right about, I think the closest we get to the gauntlet is week 6 to 9 with those teams that you just mentioned. You've got some opening, I think, on the front of this schedule, Brendan, to do some damage. Yeah, Miami game will be tough, but I think the rest of those ones up through to the point where you start to have to play the Niners, and it's actually kind of set for you to get some W, especially if you can get to Detroit again, and you can steal that one away like you have the past couple of years. Even if you lose the Dolphins, you still come through maybe the early part of that schedule in kind of a 4-1 sort of state. You got the middle bye right in the center of the schedule to just allow for the team to have the decompression at just the right time, in my opinion. And so I kept coming back to it. I go, man, you got the early quarterbacks that are the rookie quarterbacks you get to play through the first couple of weeks, which is absolutely ideal. Hard for me to bitch and moan too much about what I see on the schedule, and I usually can find something.
It's not too bad at all. It's
No.
just, it's a team that does have some clear weaknesses. Like, it's not a Super Bowl caliber team in my estimation.
No.
So I'm not expecting anything like that. But if it were a Super Bowl team, I'd be looking at the schedule and thinking to myself, I think we can. I think the schedule plays in our favor. So I do think this will be a playoff team. My initial estimation would be this is a playoff team.
And that's when you mentioned the schedule, that's what this schedule's done for me, and the way that they've set this up, in my opinion, Brendan, is it's turned me in a place of this looking at this team as really a 7 to 8 win team, to saying there's a couple extra more wins on this schedule, because the nature of it is not as bad as it's been in other seasons. And I can see the pathway to, even on a team that's turning things over a little bit and trying to kind of, move things and get a whole new regime in here, where there's a lot of opportunities. And at the end of the day, the factors that come into play this are, yes, you're turning over coaching staffs and new offenses and new defenses, but you're also here, aren't you, Brendan, with a bevy of young talent that you have collected over the past couple of years, predominantly on the back of not just great drafting, but that Denver Bronco trade, that are also now going to continue and develop here with McDonald's onboarding of his scheme.
Yeah. And that's the wild card here. That's that McDonald's scheme. If it jumps out and immediately just has a bigger impact and effect on this team, there could be a little bit of a higher ceiling here that we're not currently perceiving. So I'm definitely approaching this season with an open mind.
Yeah, I am too. I've said I think there's a wide spectrum on what you could see as far as the result of this team. We could see a 6-win season where it's just the teams trying to learn all of the different parts and what they got to do to get this scheme right. Or you could see a team that picks up real easy advantages that are there for them to grab right off the table instantly, like targeting the middle of the field, like being willing to blitz a little bit more often, like flipping your coverages from pre to post snap, that are very easy things to institute that have just been left there in prior years as far as advantages on the table. And that might bring out more success earlier on with McDonald with it. It's very hard to predict.
Right. All right. So, yeah, that's the look at the schedule. I'm feeling pretty good about it. It was fun to have it slowly opened up that way. So thank you for doing that with me.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Mm-hmm. And, at this point, the off season, we're about ready to kind of just hibernate and wait for things to start to happen. It's going to be a minute. Next couple of shows that we have planned would be the deep diving into the rookies. We haven't, we've talked about them in some capacity, but we've got a lot more we need to say. So probably our next 2 shows will be that. And then it might be time to kind of put the show on pause until something actually happens for us to talk about.
Very well. Or we'll look at some outside the box topics or whatnot with you folks, if we can come up with something on that. So play by ear.
All right. So thank you everybody for coming out. Great audience. Appreciate it. And that's your schedule. That is what your Seahawks are dealing with in the 2024 season. It's going to be fun one way or the other. We've got a new coach, got a new regime, new stuff in place. And all we need now is to see the games actually play out. So I'll be seeing you guys soon. Brandon, we'll do this again next week, Thursday, I think, back to the usual time. Tonight was an unusual time because of the schedule release. Back to Thursday night next week. So going to go ahead and say it, going to go ahead and hit it, and then we're going to get out of here, and we're going to get ready for the season. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.